Hi, in this video, I'll be doing a short tutorial for beginners on how to do an anime figure style hair painting. We'll be using some of the optional hair parts for 30-Minute Sisters from Bandai. So what is anime figure style hair painting? While watching anime, you may have noticed one of these, the halo highlights. The style might be a bit different from artist to artist, but the general idea is the same. There is a ring of highlights that goes around the hair. Besides the halo, there are also a few other patterns you often see on anime characters. When the characters are made into figures, the cel-shaded highlights are often portrayed as a lighter color gradient around the area. It's a small subtle detail, but it makes the hair look and feel like its two-dimensional counterpart. For the purpose of this tutorial, this is what we'll refer to as the anime figure style hair painting. There's quite a few different ways to achieve this style of hair painting, using 3 different colors, using 2 colors and a melamine sponge, hand brushing in the highlights, and many more. In this video, however, I'll be introducing you to my favorite way of doing it, using a single color of paint. It's a handy method for beginners. You don't need to constantly clean your airbrush to swap colors or prepare multiple airbrushes. As for the hairstyles, we'll go over 3 different styles: the short hair, the long hair, and ponytail. The first step is to apply a white surfacer. Yes, I did say we'll only use one color, but the surfacer doesn't count. Once all the parts are painted white, we can start painting on the actual colors. For the paint, I'll be using the Lascivus Aura line from Mr. Hobby. It's very important to thin the colors extra while doing this method. The idea is to thin it to the point where the paint comes out like a clear color. Let's start with the shortcut first. Shortcut hairstyles are generally very simple. All you need to do is add the halo around the upper part of the hair. It's a lot easier if you keep it partially assembled like this. This way, it's much easier to align the ring of highlights around the entire head. Because we thin the paint extra, it's important to only pull the trigger slightly while spraying. This allows us to spray a very thin layer at a time. You see how lightly the blue goes on? I mist the layer on multiple times to deepen the color of the blue. We don't want to put on a wet layer. We want to mist on a thin layer. Patience is very important here. Take a break to let it dry for a minute if you have to. We want to avoid the paint from pooling. I work my way up from the bottom and stop around the part where I want the highlights to go. Once the bottom half is done, I move on to the top. I start from the center of the head and slowly widen the colored spot. Because the surface here is much smaller than the bottom half, it's important to be extra careful not to pull the paint. Once the highlight is defined properly, I spray a thin layer from far to blend in the colors more naturally. How much you want to blend depends on your preference. If you want the highlights to look more subtle, blend more. If you want it to look more defined, blend less. I personally prefer it more subtle, but for this video I'll leave it more defined so that it's easier to see on camera. Long hair starts out the same as short hair. Start out by creating the halo first for the top part of the hair. For the bottom part, we need to think about 2 things. First is the curve of the hair. This here is the curve of the hair. Second is how the light hits the hair. If light hits the hair from above like this is where the light will hit it the most, and these are where it'll hit the least. In real life, lighting is much more complicated, but this simple process is the basis of how most anime figure hair shading is done. We can just color the underside dark. This is because we assume the underside does not receive as much lighting. For the outer part, I start out by shading the parts where the color will go in darker. I then slowly widen the shading until the highlight becomes properly defined. Afterwards, I do the blending process to make it all look more natural. I did end up getting rid of one of the highlight bar. I just didn't like the look of having 2 bars here. In hindsight, I should have painted these three parts together to keep the highlights better aligned. Ponytail also starts out similar to the other two hairstyles. We start out with half a halo on the front hair. At this point, I noticed the paint wasn't thinned enough. Again, it's very important to thin the paint extra. Otherwise, it's harder to create a smoother looking gradient. The back side of the ponytail will have a ring of highlight that goes around here. It's a bit similar to the regular halo, but the orientation is a bit different. The order doesn't really matter, but I like to paint in the root area first. I then work from the edges until the highlight ring is defined. Afterwards, I do a bit of blending and the back side is complete. The tail part is a lot like the bottom part of the long hair. These are where the lights will hit, and these are where it'll hit least. Start out by painting where the light won't hit. Since the underside of the ponytail is more likely to receive light than a regular long hair, I like to do a bit of shading here too. Like with all the other parts, I slowly expand the painted area until the highlight is properly defined. And finally, I finish it off with a light blending. So here's what the short hair looks like after a matte top coat. You can see the halo highlight here. It goes around all the way to the back. For the long hair, it's a bit harder to see because the color is so light, but here's the ring that goes around the top part. On the bottom, you see a band of highlight that goes across. Once again, this here is the curve, and light is hitting it this way. This is the base of the darker color where light doesn't hit, and this is where the highlight goes across. For ponytail, the front hair is the same as the other two. Let's remove the tail to take a better look at the back side. You can see here the ring of highlight that goes around radially around the root. For the tail, I'm making an assumption that light is hitting in this direction. As such, this part is brighter, and the color here is darker. This part is also brighter, and this part is also darker. That covers the basics of anime figure style hair painting. If you found this tutorial helpful, please like and subscribe. I'm planning to make more videos like this going forward, so please look forward to it. Thank you.